Alright, bed leveling. One of the biggest problems with all 3D printers is that bed has to be level. I mean, even on filament printers, if it's not level with that head moving, you have problems. With the SLAs and the DLPs, this whole build plate needs to be flat on the bottom surface of this vat. If it's not going to stick right, it's not going to build right. Prints are going to fail, you're going to waste resin, time, money. So, on the Move, I figured I'd do a little something quick to show you all what you need to do that. First off, it's easier to do with an empty vat. It don't have to be empty, but it is a little easier to do. You would, of course, home your plate all the way down. And if you got resin in it, that's fine. You may need a little flashlight or something to look in the bottom to really see it. I use a little LED flashlight, a low-powered flashlight. It's no biggie. But you home it down, and then you click on the Z calibration, you click the button. If you're using Nano DLP, click the button that says disable motors. When you do that, you'll be able to turn these motors right here by hand. When they're locked in and engaged, you can turn them, but they're real notchy because you're fighting against the motor itself, the electrical current. Always disengage them to move them, okay? So you home your bed all the way down to where it thinks is home. You adjust your Z-axis as close as you can get it to home. And then what you want to do, you want to loosen up these 4 bolts, and the same on this side right here, those 4 bolts. And you want to loosen up those 2 bolts right there, and the same on the other up top, those 2 bolts. And there's a reason I'm saying you got to loosen those up, and I'll get to that in a minute. With this in the home position and these loose, you want to look in the bottom underneath right here and look at the bottom and see that this is touching on all 4 corners. It's just laying flat. No pressure. You don't want no pressure on this. You can back them off what you need to take the pressure off, whatever. On both sides, they work independently. And once you get it to where all 4 corners are touching and everything looks good and flat, no pressure, tighten these 4 screws up and the other 4 screws up. Leave these 2 screws up here loose. And when I say loose, you just want to loosen them up enough to where they're free. You don't want to be able to turn a lot of slop, okay? And then you want to raise the bed a few millimeters, 10 millimeters, and then home it again and check it. And if it's not where it was before, if it's not just touching, then raise your Z-axis a little bit, and that's where my fine adjust Z comes in. I just give it a few little, just a little turn, and I do it again until I get it to where it's just touching. Or I lower it down. Either way you got to go to get it to just touch. If it's pressing, you want to bring it off. If it's too high, you want to bring it down. Once you get that, then what you want to do is make sure that it goes, you take it up and home it again to make sure it goes back and it stops where you need it to. And then I need you to take it and run it up from home about 150 millimeters. Just press the 100 millimeter up button and then the 50 millimeter up button, and just let it run with these just slightly loose on both sides. And then run it back down to home, and then run it back up to about 150 millimeters, and then tighten these up at 150 millimeters high. Because when I got mine, this mount here was actually tilted a little more, so this rod, when you looked at it, was leaned out a lot more than it is now. And since this is the original Uber Z, on the new Uber Z that he's getting ready to come out with, this piece right here and this piece are connected with a set of screws that are adjustable. This one's one solid piece of metal. When you hone this down and you set these 4 screws loose and then tighten them back up, you could have moved this in or out of here when you were leveling the bed. And if your rod is tilted a little bit, it can bind on the way up, and one side will stop moving, and when it does, you'll know it because it'll start making some noise, and the other side will run way up, and eventually it'll just bind and stop. Best thing you can do if it starts to do that is kill the power to it, fix it, and go back and start over. It should still be in. The home button will not have moved, so you can home it, get it back down, and then just adjust the opposite side from the switch, because that one will be off a little bit, and get it back flush and start over again. But once you get up 150 millimeters, tighten up both sets of screws on both sides and run it up and down a couple of times, and you should be fine. And that's how you level this bed and make sure it won't bind. And once you get that bed level, because what I noticed is, even when I got mine, one corner was slightly off than the other, and it probably happened in shipping, okay? Because, you know, these things get knocked around in shipping. So it's always best, and most people put them in there and lower them, and they think it's level, but if you're not looking in the bottom to make sure all four corners are exactly just touching, then you got a problem. Now, the next thing I had is, sometimes it seemed like it leveled out fine to the bottom of the vat, and sometimes it was off a little bit. And what I found out is, if I ever pull this tray out right here, the vat, when I put it back in, I got it centered out enough to where this will go down in it, and you get just a little bit of room back and forth. But that little bit of room, if you notice right here, I've got a thumb screw, or a nut, and a thumb screw, okay? Well, the reason I got that is, and it's on the other side that way too, the other two thumb screws I took off, and I put them little nuts there, because with this thumb screw on, for some reason, sometimes, just depending on the spacing, when I put it back in, the edge of this rail would just catch on that thumb screw right there, and it would bind, and it would cause it not to level out properly. So I just put the nuts on in place of them, and it comes down and sets perfectly every time. I don't have to worry about that no more. So that's just something to look out for. If you seem like you can't get it to bottom out correctly, like it's stopping and you don't know why, it could be those two thumb screws. So just a heads up. And like I said, if that's the case, these are centered out across it. You really don't want to take this one and put it here and then put this one here, because then your hold pressure is more to the side than in the center. It would probably be fine, but just don't. Just get you, that's a lock nut, a 3M lock nut. Just get you a couple of them, put them on there, you're done. So that covers the bed leveling. Because I got this build plate with the holes in it, I got it the same thickness as the regular build plate. All the standoffs, everything came out the same. So nothing really changed, except for the fact I have a lot of holes for cure resin to stick to. So I hope this helps with anybody that's having bed leveling problems. You know, Dean will tell you to loosen those up and do that. I figured, you know, showing you is probably easier than telling you. So I hope this helps. You all have a good day.